Hi, my name is Nicole Willette, and welcome to Marketing on a Shoestring, which was presented in Fort Kent recently. Um, so, the audio on my track was compromised, and while it did work, it was a little bit distracting. So, what I thought I would do is re record what I did. I learned a few lessons though, and I'm happy for that. So, I hope that you get as much out of this rewatching it as you did in the presentation, and we'll just get this started. So, basically, the power of the internet can be summarized in the fact that I basically told a bunch of my friends that I was headed north, and I sold about 500 pounds of potatoes in about 7 minutes. Um, and we've never before lived in an era where we can let people know what's going on in such a quick and low cost way. Now, I'm not in the business, of course, of selling potatoes, but it's if I can do something like that, it makes you wonder what else is possible with the internet. And the good news is a lot is possible. So you may ask yourself why you're in this workshop, besides the fact that you want to learn more about this. And I thought of a few reasons why someone would want to learn a little bit more about the stuff we're talking about today. And the first is that recommendations matter more than ads do at this point. So, 23% of online shoppers are influenced by social media. They'll ask their friends for recommendations directly. They'll go on a Facebook page or an Instagram page of a brand's website and get a vibe of how people are feeling about that. 88% of people trust online reviews, even if they don't know the people that wrote them. I thought that was kind of fascinating. And a lot of people consult their family and friends directly for recommendations. Now, it's one thing, 15 or 20 years ago when we were sitting around the Thanksgiving table talking about our favorite auto mechanic or something like that. But in this day and age, with all the technology we have, it's very easy for us to reach out to our family, to our friends, and get those recommendations directly. Another reason why we're here is that internet is becoming our main form of media. I don't think a lot of people think of the internet that way, but it's changed our lives to the degree and maybe more so of like the printing press. So actually internet has surpassed television consumption here in the United States, but this is a global chart. So as we see, the internet globally is going to surpass television by about halfway through 2018, which we're almost there now. So internet is how people get their information. It's how they connect with people. It's what they do for entertainment. We also have a rise of mobile device usage. We'll talk about it a little later, but 4 out of every 5 people will look at their smartphone within 15 minutes of waking up. And we see these numbers of people and the average amount of hours they spend per day and how they use these devices. So the average adult looks like, and this is in 2015, spent 6 hours a day online with digital media. And we have that broken apart here in green. It's for mobile devices. And so we see about half of that time is spent on mobile devices. And I'm sure that as we see the amount of time on mobile devices versus non-mobile devices, it keeps going up. So people are just using their phones for more and more things, which we know from our daily lives as well. And we know that online purchasing is on the rise, that people are buying a lot online. And I thought this was interesting that a lot of people in the millennial and Gen X demographics prefer to buy online in the store. That's not to say they don't want to buy at local businesses. That's just to say they just want the convenience of buying online, having things delivered to them. 80% of Americans shop online monthly, and I thought it was interesting that 5% of Americans shop daily online. That's just something I can't really understand, but it's a number, that's for sure. So all this to say is that we're living more of our lives online, whether it's connecting with people or whether it's buying things or whether it's, checking the weather, all that. But doing outreach as a business doesn't have to be time consuming or expensive. And so, with about 10 years of experience in this business, I kind of wanted to go through what some of your options are in this particular course. The first thing, though, is it really helps us to figure out not just what you do, but what you don't do by knowing who your customers are. And it's not everyone. So by knowing who your customers are, you can maximize your efforts. So for example, if you are working mainly with a baby boomer demographic, not a lot of them necessarily are on Instagram. So rather than you spending a lot of your efforts trying to find them, you can just kind of go where they're already at. Knowing who your customers are can make choices for your business. It can help you decide on products and services to offer in addition to what you're already doing. It can help you figure out if you host an event, what kind of event that should be. And probably as importantly as the other two options is you can scare off kind of bad customers. We all have those people that, and it's not that you don't want to serve them, it's just that it takes a lot of time and energy to serve them. And you could be spending your time and energy with people who already want to be there. So being as specific as possible about your ideal customer will help make a lot of decisions for you about what you're doing online and off. So you might think about some things like, what is the typical age, gender of my customer? What kind of car do they drive? What kind of coffee do they drink, or tea or coffee-like beverage? What kinds of brands do they buy and use regularly? Where do they like to go on a weekend? And so what I did, because I didn't want you to think I wasn't willing to do this for myself, was I just went through and thought about the customers that I work with in my business. I have a really good idea of who they are, which is they tend to be women, they tend to be middle-aged, they tend to be middle income, they tend to have kids that are older or out of the house, they drive things like Subarus and other SUVs, they tend to be directors and owners of businesses and have some interest in the arts, whether it's directly with their business or personally. And they tend to, so I know all this about my typical customer. And so what this allows me to do is decide some things that I need to do with my business. So what do I call my workshop? What kinds of social media sites do I spend time on? And in my case, I spend a lot of time on Facebook and Pinterest because that's where my people tend to be. I spend a little less time on Twitter because my people tend not to really be there. If I'm doing a giveaway, do I want to do a coffee mug or a water bottle? I guess in my case, it wouldn't really matter. I could go either way, but you might be like, oh, my people are more, flask drinkers. Should you advertise in a particular publication? My people are probably reading magazines like Real Simple or Oprah, for example, and they may not be reading other kinds of publications that I could advertise in. All this to say that there's lots of decisions that we can make because we know these people intimately. And of course you work beyond your type, right? Everybody does. But being clear about who you are resonates with the right people. And I guess that's all I'm saying is it's hard to be all things to all people. And so deciding what you are will help you also decide what you're not and what you're going to do moving forward. So we all have things that we want to say, right, about our businesses. And what I like to do is kind of sit down and get myself organized, maybe quarterly. It's hard to do this kind of a year out. It's not like you know what's going to be going on next Easter probably, but you probably do this for the next 3 months and just make a calendar of all the events that are coming up that you want to help promote, whether maybe it's things that are in your business, upcoming sales or things for the Christmas season. Maybe it's organizations that you work with that you want to help promote, what they're doing, like a toy drive. A list of resources you want redistributed. So maybe you pay a graphic designer a lot of money to make you an annual report. Or maybe you have somebody who took a lot of pictures at an event, or you have someone who did really great headshots of everybody in your business. You have a list of, vendors that you work with, causes and organizations that you work with. You have other marketing that you do, right? Whether it's an email newsletter or weekly YouTube videos or, basically anything like that. And what you want to do is be able to put this all together so that you can distribute it in multiple ways. Because the reality is that most people are not sitting, hanging on your every word. They're not opening your email newsletter and reading everything. They're not going to your website and reading every page. They're not reading every Facebook status update. So the idea is you need to remind people pretty regularly and in different ways of what you do. And we have multiple tools for this distribution. We have our website, we have our social media accounts, we have email newsletters, we have events, we can hold contests, we can do all kinds of things related to marketing. And we kind of want to talk about what each one of these tools is today. So what I'm going to do to make this a little bit saner is I'm going to divide this into 5 separate videos. The first one is this introductory video, which as you see, relatively short. And I'm going to divide this up into the other parts that we want to talk about, like the website, the social media, and all of that, so that you can watch them in pieces and enjoy them that way. And it'll make it probably a little bit more digestible. So if you, I guess, have any comments about this video or any questions, what you can do is actually post it in the comments of this page. And I'll actually get an email alert when you do that, and then I can answer questions directly. So maybe you went to this event, maybe you thought of a question you had after, and you're rewatching this and it's making you think of it. So please feel free to do that, because if you have the question, chances are other people do too. So this next part is going to be all about websites and doing more with your website. Now, don't worry if you don't have a website. This next part will discuss that in detail. And if you do have a website, you can just sort of skip over the 5 minutes that I talk about that. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which is part 1, all about websites.